Hey everybody, what's up? Ray here again, and we are finally back in Minecraft in my medieval world of Merath. Now I know I haven't uploaded for quite a while and I'm very sorry about that, but I can tell you that from now on I will be uploading more often and hopefully also more regularly. A few things have changed in my life that will allow me to make more videos in the future. Now, you might think that with all of the time that I have made some really crazy amounts of progress in the world, but the reality is that unfortunately I did not. Just like I didn't really have that much time or space in my mind to create videos, also I didn't really have that much motivation to really build that much. Doesn't mean I haven't built anything, of course, just maybe not as much as you might expect from all of that time. But just how I now have more time to make videos, I will also now have more time to work on the world. So in the future we will hopefully probably have a lot more progress than in the past. So let's get started talking about the things that I've actually built. Specifically, I have built this village, or well, you can see it's like half a village, right? But I've built this and I want to talk about this. This is like the main thing that I've done. I've also done a few other things that we'll talk about in a moment. But first, let's talk about the main thing, which is the village. So you can see the gate is over there. That's the Western City Gate. You see the lake there. This is all the new terrain that I've shown you in the last episode. And you will recognize that path planning work over there, these yellow lines that mark out where the paths are supposed to be in the future. And I basically built this village a bit tucked away from the main path, right? It's not on the main path, it's a bit tucked away. And you can see this green outline here is marking what will in the future become a forest. I haven't worked with trees in this world at all yet. In fact, like there's 0 trees in this world except for the generated ones, but 0 trees that I've created. But that will change, of course. That has to change, but you know, this is just the planning out of forest. So there will be a tiny one there, then the big one here, and another one over there. So the village is kind of tucked away from the main path here, right? Keep in mind, this is the main street that will lead to West Point, which is the next big city that I want to work on. That is all the way in the west over there. It will not nearly be as big as Linshire, but it's the next big city, basically. And this is the main street that connects Linshire to West Point. And I want this village to be kind of tucked away from that, kind of hidden away, right? Kind of giving it this like cozy village feel. So I basically decided to hide it behind these forests, right? Now obviously this doesn't quite work as long as the forests aren't there, but you get the idea. You get the idea. So let's talk about what I've actually built. So over here, going into the village entrance, we have the very first field that I've built in this world. This is the very first field that exists, and actually currently the only, no, actually it's not the only field, but it is the first field that exists in the world. And we have this little creek, this little tiny river that flows through the village and flows into that river over there. You know the river from previously, from the previous episode. Right, and I just added this tiny creek here to, you know, to basically give a bit of an interesting terrain interaction here to the village. Now over here we have this farmhouse. This is actually not accessible from the main path. You actually have to go through the village itself, through the like central market square here with a little well, and then you have to go around this building and over this bridge, and then you will end up at the farmhouse here. And there's like the farmhouse, as every building, there is no interior, obviously, but I did work on the exterior quite a bit. Wanted to make that interesting. We have this path up here that leads up into the forest, and we have this little space here. I'm not sure, I probably add some more details, but you know, I already like it the way it is. Just might just add a few more details here and there because it still feels kind of empty, but overall I kind of like it. So this creates this cozy like farm feeling when you're here. It's just like, I think it's nice. Now you can actually we'll talk about that in a second. We'll talk about that after we're done with the village. So this house is literally just a house. I haven't thought of what this house would be. It's literally just a tiny house. It will basically mark the entrance to the village. There will be probably one more house over here, but this is one of the first houses you will encounter in the village when you're coming from the town, from the city. And then over here I have plans to build a church. I have no like places of worship in this world yet at all. And before I build the cathedral in Linshire, I will probably be building the church just in the village here. That probably makes sense, not having the first house of worship that I built be the main one in the main city of the entire world, right? Just, you know, basically having a bit of practice in the world here. Now we have these 3 buildings around the market square here. These will probably be like sort of shops and stuff, nothing special. And then over here we have this little house. This is the first one that I built for the village, actually. This very much guided the design philosophy. Remember how the Linshire style is inspired by a style that my friend Ravik has built when back on the Diverging Realms and Kargus server, when he was building his plot, where he was very much using this exact style, right? Like, I basically adapted it to Linshire by switching out the color palette for the roofs to be brick and stone brick. But his original style was spruce wood and oak wood, like this building here and that building, like these buildings here as well. You know, that was like changing the color scheme was one of the adaptations that I made to make the style fit better for Linshire, for the city. But for the village, I felt that this style was just perfect. So I decided to basically steal it and just build a few houses that were, but this is mostly in his style. It has some things, some of the adaptations that I still made for Linshire, but it's mostly a style. You will also notice, generally speaking, that these houses are single floor, right? You have just the one floor in the bottom and then the roof floor, excluding towers, but you basically just have one floor and then the roof, whereas the buildings in the city have multiple floors and then the roof, right? So this is also one thing. Like there is actually this one building here has like 2 floors, you can see, and then the roof. But this is also like just like 1.5 floors because this is like on a hill, and there are other places where it's like over here where it's just like 1 floor and then the roof. So it's like 1.5 floors and then the roof. There are no true multi-storied buildings here if you exclude the roof floor. So yeah, this gives it this like sort of cozy village style. Another thing, basically I think my favorite place, my favorite places are generally along this creek here anyway. So we have this place which I already talked about, then of course we have all of the sort of plant stuff and whatnot around the creek here. But probably the favorite part of the village for me is this place here, right? We have this little fishing place here with fishing nets and a fishing boat. This tiny micro pier here, basically. This is like for this house, right? This belongs to this house. It's kind of like a fishing house, fisher's house, whatever. Fishery, if you will. And then on the other side, we actually have the second field in the world, which is this pumpkin field, which I created. I quite like it. Obviously, this is not according to Minecraft efficiency standards, but that's kind of the point, right? This is supposed to be looking like a more realistic pumpkin field and not just like an efficient farm that you would build in survival. So I quite like this. This is like also super detailed. You can see more nets and stuff to hang fish on, and some blood from the fish that have been like dried out and whatnot on the floor. I really like it. This is like super detailed, and I want the entire village to be that way. A lot of places are still lacking a bit in that regard in the terms of detail, but yeah, this is the goal for everything in the village, and I want everything to basically be this like sort of cozy village kind of style, you know. Then over here, nothing special to say about these buildings here either, except that they are not finished. Like the buildings themselves are actually finished, but everything around them is not. So you can see this here is just completely unfinished, and here. This is completely unfinished, so what I will do is I will have the path that goes down here, come around here, and I'm not sure if I want to put a garden here or if I just want this to be a utility area, not quite sure yet. But then we would have small paths. You can see the small path here. This will continue across the top of this wall here, connect with the main path there, and then go down here, and then this will block in this carrot field here. You can see I already made the sign there for my memory. So I will have a carrot field here, and I'm not sure, maybe I will put a pier here or maybe even a bridge to the other side, but we'll see. And then there will be another house here, probably another one up the street here, and that will probably be that. Again, the church will be here, and then one more house there, a few houses around the church, of course. But this is all not really planned out. So this is basically the other half of the village, which is not at all done, if you will, but you know, that is generally the plan that I have. So that's like in detail about the village that I have to say stuff. That was a proper English sentence, I promise. But apart from that, I want to talk about the broader plan that I have for this area in regards to like all of these forests, fields, sightlines and stuff like that. Because you can see that even though the village is tucked away from the main path, it is still very close to it, right? And realistically, it would be a bit further away, but you gotta keep in mind that I have that the world is basically scaled down, right? Because otherwise it would just be completely unrealistic for me to finish the world. It's already a big project, but if I were to make this on a 1-to-1 scale, it would just be completely unrealistic for me to finish literally anything, right? Like even when it comes to the village itself, it's probably, like the settlements are probably like 1/4 the size they would be. That includes Linshire, by the way. Linshire is 800 blocks across, 800 meters across. Realistically, if this was the biggest city in the world, it would be like 3 kilometers across, right? It's like 4 times as much. But the same goes for the village here as well, right? So it's all scaled down, and the world around it is scaled down even more to a factor of like 12 or 16. So this is aggressively scaled down, even though it's still a massive world. But that means that things are closer together than they are supposed to be. So what I decided to do is basically use tricks that theme parks sometimes use to make the space feel bigger than it is, and to make sure that you don't notice how close things actually are. Like in theme parks, you may be in one themed area and there's a wall there, and like literally it's just a thin wall, and on the other side you have a completely differently themed area, but you would not notice that, right? You would not know that unless you look at it from an aerial view, because the paths and stuff are designed in such a way. And I want to kind of do this as well. So for example, the best example I think is this path here. Originally, like keep in mind this forest here is to kind of block the view between the village and the main street, right? And originally my plan was to have this path here go around like this and then connect to the main street right over there. But that would have basically given away that you are just walking around the forest and nothing more, and that it's literally, the forest is basically just this very thin wall between the main street and the village. And I didn't like that prospect, so I instead decided to push the what are the words? To basically move the path this way to have it go straight, and then move around there and connect somewhere over here. So we'll have the crossing over there. So if you're coming from here, you will have to go around and all the way around here to get into the village, right? And with like having actual fields here and maybe even more tree lines or high hedges or something that will block sightlines, it will not be that obvious that you will actually have just made a massive U-turn, right? And that's the point. It makes it feel more it makes it feel further away than it actually is, right? Now this obviously put me into the problem that there is the city gate right over there, and the village is also supposed to be further away from the city than it actually is, like in world, right? Again, everything is scaled down. So what I decided to do is to add this forest over here, which will basically block your view of the gate. If you go down here, you can see, like if you imagine having high trees here, this will just completely block your view of the gate. And you will not see the gates until you actually come around the corner here, right? And this is kind of the point, right? You don't see how close you actually are to the city until you're basically there. And that's kind of the point, right? These are the sort of tricks that I'm trying to use to make everything feel a bit more distant. Now, obviously, if you're in the aerial view like we are right now, everything breaks down. That's just a given. But if you're on the ground, the idea is that you shouldn't see how close everything is. Same thing goes with this bridge here. Now, this will be like a solid stone bridge, right? But I don't really want to have that be that visible from the village, from the pier here, for example. You can see that the forest line here and the forest line there will basically block off your view from the bridge. You might be able to see it through the trees a little bit here and there, but basically it will block your view of the bridge. So even inside the village, you can't really see how close you are to the bridge, right? And when you're on the bridge, the same thing. This is why I was considering to extend the forest down here. My first plan was to just have it up here, but my plan then was to extend it to also be coming down here to block the view of the village from the bridge a bit more. There will probably still be a sliver like right here, where you will probably still see a few buildings, but I'm thinking that will hopefully be okay, that you will see the village, but it will still feel further away than it actually is. Now, this is also due to the fact that you can't just go from the bridge to the village immediately. You will have to go around either this forest or this forest, and this forest will also then break your sightline. You can't just tell, oh, okay, I'm just going around that corner and then I'm there, right? You will actually have the forest in the way, so you'll go around here and only then will you be moving towards the village. So it will not be that obvious that you are that close to the village. At least that's my hope. We'll see how everything turns out when, you know, the forest is actually in and everything. But that's the plan, to make things feel more distant than they really are, to use these kinds of design tricks, right? Now, I'm not sure what to do with this area. Logically, these should be fields, but this will give you the full view of the village here. On one hand, I really quite like the view here, so I don't really want to obstruct it with even more trees. But on the other hand, it might just break down this whole illusion that the village is far away. So, not sure, but yeah, I'd probably just keep these as fields. We'll see. And yeah, that's basically that for the village here. Obviously, I'm still gonna do tons of fields around the village and forests. Like, these were just the forests I deliberately planned out for breaking up sightlines and whatnot. But there will obviously be more forests around, just because there will be forests around, right? There will also be fields around everywhere, because this is agricultural land, right? I already talked about that. There will be fields in this kind of triangle, but there will also be fields around here and all that kind of stuff. So those are plans for the future, but God, it's something that will come. So yeah, that's basically all for the village, and now I want to show you a few other things that I've done. These are smaller things, but I still want to talk to you about them. And the first thing is terraforming. So for that, we'll actually go towards the north of the city. Alrighty, we are here in the northwest of the city. If I turn around, you can see the western gate is over there and the city center is over there. This will be the north. Right over there will be the northern gate. So this is the northwest of the city. And I've done some terraforming here. Now remember, in the last episode I said that in terms of terraforming I want to focus on going west, so that I can get to the point where West Point will be. And that is still the focus, but there were a few things I had to basically tie up here in the north. Two parts. The first part is this. Now if you compare this to the last episode, you will recognize that there was a bit of a salient here of unterraformed terrain. It basically went from, if you follow this line, it went straight and then it went in like this, and the river actually ended here, and then it went back out and over there. And it was a salient of unterraformed stuff. And this was a bit of a problem for me because, as you can see, I had planned to have this path here. This connects back to the main path that we've seen on the village there, right over there. You can just barely see where the forest is and the bridge, and the village is just sort of render distance there. So this is just a path that connects that western bound main street with the northern bound main street that will come out of the city through the northern gate, obviously. And the salient was a bit in the way because this is exactly where the street was supposed to go. So I basically just cleaned this up, built this, extended the river here as you can see, planned out this next bridge over here. This will be a much smaller bridge than the one over there. There's another small bridge there. And it created this nice little valley here and stuff like that. I think this is overall really nice terrain for whatever I'm planning to do. Not quite sure. There will probably be, again, just as always, fields, forests, stuff like that. But I still got to figure out how and where exactly to make things look really nice and cozy. Because like that's kind of what I'm going for with the world here, right? So yeah, still got to figure that sort of stuff out. But overall, I'm really happy with how the base here turned out. So that was the first part, and following the future path, which I haven't planned out as you can see, but following the future path northward, actually no, this is eastward, that's north, this is eastward, you can see I've also terraformed some stuff here. So terraforming basically ended over here, and then there was just this corner that was unterraformed. I terraformed this for two reasons. First of all, I needed this bit to be finished, because as you can see the northern main street is coming in through here, going over here, and then like we'll have a gate here and a bridge, and then the northern bound main street will be coming out here and connecting to that other path. But for that I had to have the terrain here. So this was the first part that I built. And then the second reason why I built the other part, which is over here, is that this was actually the last corner of terrain that was missing for the city. This over here was the last bit of, like the city is going to go all the way to this corner somewhere. The city wall is going to come in here and then break off from the river here and towards the other river there. Well, it's the same river, it's just right, the different parts of the river. But this all is going to be city, and this was not terraformed. This was the last place that was not terraformed when it comes to the city itself. So with this, I now finished this off, so now 100% of the terrain base for the city is done, finally. Took me long enough, right? But now all of the terrain for the city is done, which means I can work on any part of the city that I like to without having to worry about any terrain being not finished. Because now everything is finished, which is great. So, that is that. You can see I left these little pools of water here. My thought is still, I may redo this, may not, but my thought is still that I might have some aquaculture sort of things here, you know, like rice or something, or similar plants that will require a lot of water, basically like flooded fields or whatnot. Basically have the main street come out here, and then one side of the main street would be just normal fields, the other side would be the sort of aquaculture thing. I think that might be really interesting. Not quite sure if I'll pull through with this, but it's the idea, so I left it as it is. Left these pools here. Obviously this will be like sort of built out to be more like artificial fields and stuff, but yeah, it's the idea. The idea is still there. Not quite sure if I will actually do it, but the idea is there. And that are the main things that I've done. There's one tiny thing that I did in the city itself, if we just hop over here real quick. Not really built anything, but I planned some stuff. So if you go down here and I just reduce my speed real quick, you can see I have all of these red blocks here. And you can see, if you look at the sign, backyard gardens. Now what I've decided to do is to basically block off some of these streets and turn them into these sort of gardens or backyards or whatever. So there's this one thing here, there's this bit here. You can see this sign just says that this would be maybe a storage area because it would turn this into like a dead end, right? So maybe I will just put some storage here, we'll see. But I want to put this garden backyard thing here. Another one will be over here. So this one here, this was intended to be the main entrance for this goldsmith here, but I decided to flip that around to here. Makes way more sense to have the main entrance be, you know, towards the main street here. So we'll have that, and then this bit here will be blocked off as well as sort of a backyard. This will turn the street into even more of a dead end, as you can see. But this is what I talked about in like episode 5, I think, where you want to have these like dead ends and streets where you can like see there's other stuff on the other side, but you can't directly get there, you have to go around and stuff. Makes the city a bit more interesting. So I quite like this from that perspective, but also from the perspective that it's just more realistic. Right? When I first started working on the city. Remember, I was doing the time lapses and stuff, so I was really just more building individual houses that just happened to be standing next to each other, rather than building like an actual proper city. So initially all of the houses were just like standing singular in the world, with completely surrounded with streets, and it was just not great. So it just doesn't look great, it's uninteresting, it's boring, and it's also unrealistic. So that's bad. And I first started by turning this bit of street into this backyard here, or front yard, or whatever, right? But basically this kind of garden, which I think turned out pretty nice. But now I want to do this more often. If we go over here, you can also see this is actually planned for quite a while. I want to put a gate there and a gate here, and then have this. This will not turn into like a backyard garden thing. This will still be street, most likely. But this is just supposed to be this sort of backyard area for the food store and the food store. You get the point, right? And then we have the stall here, the stables here. And this is just supposed to be this backyard thing that connects them all, but that is not open to the public. So I'm planning that. I'm actually considering to block off this area as well, not sure. But yeah, this is what I'm trying to do, to kind of retroactively have like these buildings be more connected, not have them completely surrounded by streets. Especially because now what I'm going to do going further is actually think about how the city would be planned out, right? Because realistically, whenever people want to build something, you know, the city would give out plots of land, right? And the people would build there. And if you take a look at this place here, right? This would be this bit of Main Street here. This would be like like multiple plots that would just be plot next to plot directly next to each other without any street in between, right? And you would just have the buildings, and in between the buildings there would just be some garden or whatever, right? And it would be completely blocked off. And this is how it would generally be most of the time. And I've tried to do this more in this area already, but I'm now going to deliberately consider this sort of planning approach that the city would realistically take to have more realistic plots, but that will also give me a more interesting city. Now, with the existing city, obviously I can't really do it perfectly, but I'm going to retroactively change these things up to, you know, make it more interesting, make it a bit more realistic than it would be as it is right now, right? But again, this is just planning work for now. I will probably have this done by the next episode though. So, that is it for this video. Keep in mind, as I said, I will now be uploading more videos in the future, and more frequently, most importantly. So that is something that we can all look forward to. I'm looking forward to it myself. And with that said, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like my content. And see you next time. Goodbye.